I'm Dana Perino, and this is Perino on Politics. With 2 weeks to go until Inauguration Day, President Biden struggles to define his legacy. Joining me now is Republican strategist and co-founder of South and Hill Strategies, Colin Reed, and national reporter and columnist for the Washington Examiner and about a billion other places, Salena Zito. Welcome to Perino on Politics. This is the podcast where I call up my smart friends and say, what is going on? And tell me what is on your mind about the state of American politics. So great to have you back. Your crowd favorites for Perino on Politics. This is our first show of the year of 2025. It's going to be a great year. So what I thought we would do is start with not looking back so much over the past month. There has been a lot of news, especially in the last 2 weeks, but looking forward a little bit. In the month of January, I thought I would ask you, what are the storylines you're looking at or following? Because we've got 2.5 weeks more for President Biden to be in office, and we have 2 weeks of Trump in those first 14 days, I think, are going to be incredible. And I want to talk about Biden and the lame duck presidency in the second segment. So
President Trump comes out of the gate. I think he's going to be signaling a lot of things to us in the next week or so as we lead up to Inauguration Day. But I think that his approach is going to be bold, and it's going to be, there might be a couple little shocks here and there, but I really think he wants to roll out the gate with some bold decisions. And I think they will center around energy and the economy and the border. And those were the 3 really big things that that voters were, really concerned about. And so I expect to see him to roll back regulations in the energy sector. I think that will have a dramatic impact on the economy. I think he's going to put in some measures that for the border, but also a little bit about dreamers. I think there's a lot more compassion than people understand about him on that issue. And then security and safety, because obviously we're rolling into this year with a lot of security and safety issues.
There are going to be a lot of that, and that's just evidence over the past couple of weeks. Colin Reed, what do you think?
Well, I've seen the term shock and awe used to describe those first few days and weeks, Dana, and I hope that's right, because President Trump has a lot going for him. Gosh, it feels like he's already been president for a couple of months now, given the current occupant is just disgracing himself on the national stage, and I know we're going to get to that. But the 2 things President Trump doesn't have going for him are time and momentum. He's got both on his side right now, but both are fleeting. And time is the one thing he doesn't get back. And I know he's got a lot he wants to do in those first few days on the executive order front. He wants to undo a lot of the damage President Biden has done, which he did through executive order. And that's great. And he should do that. But then he needs to get to the business of lawmaking, because when presidents talk about the stroke of the pen they have and how they can just do things by fiat and mandates, they can, but then the next administration come in and undo it. It gets a lot harder to do that when you pass things through Congress with all 3 branches of government controlled under Republicans. Now is the time to really move forward. It's really between now and August, because then everyone will go home for the summer, and then people will come back in the fall, and they'll already, believe it or not, be looking toward the next election. And he's got to do a lot between now and then. And I went back before this, Dana, and looked. President Trump's big legislative achievement in his first term was the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. It was a big deal, but it didn't get done until the end of the first year, 2017. That was a whole year that elapsed. He doesn't have that luxury now. He's got to move faster. And by the way, House Republicans, the minority is small, or the margins are small, but they showed the other day that they can stick together, they can get things done, and they can move forward. And that's the same principles they use to apply to choose a new speaker that they should use to pass new laws and execute all the things the president said he was going to do on the campaign trail last year.
So just on that a little bit more, we try to keep this at a 30,000 foot level, and I don't want to get into the weeds about reconciliation bills and all that. But for people listening, they might hear about the competing strategies of having one bill or 2 bills. And President Trump indicated on Sunday he's for the one bill strategy, and I wonder what you think about that. But then today he said, but if it takes two, it takes two. What's the simplest way to explain to people who are listening to this at home, like, why does this matter? And do you have an opinion, Colin, on what is a better strategy here?
I'll leave the one versus two to the real legislative nerds, of which I am not. But I'll say this: right now, when the defense is basically asleep, the Democrats have been able to muster no sort of obstacles to him. They're still explaining how they were basically lying to the American people the last 4 years about their President Biden and his ability to be in office. They need to do as much as they can, as fast, as quickly as they can. And that lends itself toward the one big bill strategy. And basically what that means is put everything, border, energy, everything they've talked about in the campaign trail, just put it into one big legislative package and pass it and get it through, and then get the president to sign it, and really dare those Democrats to oppose it. Dare them to explain why they're against extending the tax cuts. Dare them to explain why they don't want energy dominance or a secure border, and put them on notice and get that done. Get a big win. Success begets success. And good leads to more good things. And right now, President Trump should strike while the iron's hot, get as much done as quickly as he can, because it won't stay this good forever. And it's time to make hay as while the sun's shining.
Salena, do you have a sense of the Democrats being able to pull themselves together? As Colin mentioned, they're kind of sleepy right now. They're not sure what to do. Is that changing at all? Are there any sort of sparks amongst the Democratic Party that you see?
So I've been looking for that, and I've been looking for that sort of recognition of what went wrong and what their challenges are and how to come together. But I honestly have not seen it. There was an interview with what's his name from Louisiana? I can't think of his name right now.
Mitch Landrieu? No.
Clinton's former.
Cue ball. James Carville.
Thank you. I can't believe his name went right out of my head. But he talked about why we lost, and then he started talking about, well, we need to talk about $15 an hour. I'm like, well, that's not why you lost. And by the way, that ship sailed a long time ago. People go in entry level with like $25 to $30 an hour. So I really think they don't quite understand how they missed the voters, how they bypassed them, and how they didn't listen to what voters were telling them. Look, voters were willing to initially to at least consider Harris for president, but she never gave them a reason, and the party itself also didn't give voters a reason to come back. Sherrod Brown in Ohio, Bob Casey in Pennsylvania. They didn't inspire with aspirational, things that are important in people's lives, and they still aren't doing that. I was watching MSNBC, a clip from MSNBC yesterday, where Simone Sanders said, something about Biden being, completely fine. And I've heard that over and over again. And I think nobody gets it. They're such in denial.
Yeah. One last question to you both. Do you feel the change in energy? As Colin said, it's almost like President Trump became president on election night rather than waiting till January 20th. There's a change in energy and mood and pace that reminds me, in many ways, but not completely the same as the first term of the Trump administration. Just get a sense for how you guys are feeling about it. Colin?
Yes, but there is some of that feeling, but there's also this idea. There's less. The first Trump administration came into office. They had so many things they were dealing with from the media and all these things left over from the campaign. They don't have that this time. He won such a convincing election. He's coming in with such a mandate that he's got like clear sailing ahead of him as long as he wants to do it. And I would say, especially here in DC, amongst the business community who's been so tired of having just been kicked around and had so many regulations imposed on them by these ideological, progressive Biden appointees for the last 4 years, they're just welcome and grateful for the change of pace. And look at the people who are going to Mar-a-Lago. These are not hardened Republicans. These are liberal tech executives and members of the business community who want to have an open door, who want to have a productive relationship with the White House, as they should from every party, from every president, from every political party. The problem is President Biden has been so hostile. Well, when he is there, the things he's doing are really bad and damaging. And that the feeling that there's a new day dawning, the excitement, the enthusiasm is palpable. And it's just the change is coming and people are excited.
Salena.
Yeah, absolutely. You know where I see it the most is small business people. They really, really are excited. They have felt very burdened over the past 4 years, beginning with how COVID escalated rather than de-escalated their ability to prosper. Right? It took people out of the workplace. It kept customers out of their businesses, and you saw so many small businesses close down. The optimism I see, I mean, just like in a one-day experience, from my car mechanic to my local diner that I went to, talking with these small business people. I didn't even realize that they had voted for Trump, but they are so excited about the possibility and the ability to have less regulations impacting their ability to do business.
And do you think expectations are too high?
Me? No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Here's why. They've already known what it was like to have a Trump presidency. Okay, that's important. That's not something that always happens when a new president comes in.
True.
That's something that never happened since Grover Cleveland. And second of all, in particular, in my home state of Pennsylvania, they have been so dragged down by the Biden presidency that it can't exceed expectations. It can only be better. That's how people are looking. Even if it's a little bit better, it's better than what it's been.
Right.
And small business owners don't want handouts. They don't want to be given things. They just want to know what's coming, and they want a chance to do what they do best. And that's something the Biden administration has been totally ignorant to that. Maybe it's because President Biden has never worked in the private sector. He's been in elected office for half a century. And it's just people are sensing that there is something new coming and a chance to actually do what they do well. And it's just a very different feeling than the last 4 years.
It sure is. And I've experienced this type of feeling from people, too. There's an excitement and a hope. And I guess we have hope and change is what we have. All right, we'll be right back with more Pino on Politics. And we're back with Pino on Politics. And what I wrote to you both over the weekend was, what in the actual HE double hockey sticks is going on with President Biden and the Biden administration and the lame duck? They're making some very strange decisions. And I don't really know how to describe it except to say that they've baffled me from the beginning with their communication strategy. And I thought I would just get to your reactions and have a discussion about what the last 2 months have been like and what the next 2 weeks before the inauguration could be. Salena, let's start with you.
I mean, you don't have to look any further than Pennsylvania to understand the last 2 weeks have been just emotionally and economically devastating to Pennsylvania voters, including voters that supported Biden. You begin with the pardon of the Scranton judge, the pay-for-play scheme that came out of Lackawanna County, Luzerne County, that ultimately cost the life of one child and destroyed several families.
Yeah.
And that pardon has, there is a petition to have it's called the Biden Thruway in Scranton, to have that taken down. And there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people that have signed it. But also the blockage of the U.S. Steel sale to Nippon. It may not be the best deal, but leave without getting involved at all, and let the next let the next administration have a say in this. But I know a lot of people do not like the idea of a foreign company owning an American company. However, this American company is on its knees, and it is not doing well. It's not investing in its plants, and therefore, people can the rank and file can see the writing on the wall.
Yeah, I saw an interview with the CEO of U.S. Steel today, and he basically said, this is the only way to keep this thing going. And it was almost as if Biden said, okay, well, we're not going to do it. And maybe Trump would say he was against it too, but there was no, however, we are going to do X, Y, and Z. And can I go back to the pardon for a second, Salena?
Yeah.
Is there any explanation as to why this judge got a pardon from Biden? How did that happen?
Well, as we both know, communication from this White House is zero. It has been since day one. They have been the worst communicators in the world. And no, there's been offered no explanation. In particular, to his hometown of Scranton, to the people there who I believe and they believe are owed an explanation for what happened, and they have they're terrible at communication.
Colin, how do you see the last couple of months and the 2 weeks ahead?
Yeah, Joe Biden may exit the national stage in 14 days, but the damage he's done to his party and his country, more importantly, is going to linger on well beyond. And some of these things over the last few weeks have been really, really just beyond the pale. And he talked about the pardon in Pennsylvania, also the pardon of his son, which he and his staff repeatedly said he wouldn't do.
And he's never answered a question about it.
Never. And the timing of which he did it, not that this would have made it any better, but had he done it a little bit closer to the end, it wouldn't have got the attention it did. And he's really just cheapened the value or the ability for his own party to criticize anybody else on the issue about pardons. And look, I noticed his comment last night telling him how much smarter he is than everybody. This is the true Biden. He's showing his true stripes at the end. He is a guy, look, everyone focuses on his mental acuity and his ability, and that's a good debate. We should have that. But there's a lot of things he's done over the last 4 years, or his administration have done, that have been very calculated, targeted, and damaging to this country. It's going to take a lot of time to unwind and undo them. And he's not this nice old guy with aviators and ice cream cones. He's a nasty, angry, embittered human being, especially when his own party and his donors in Hollywood told him, you got to go, Joe. You got to go, not because you're not fit for the job. We knew that all along. You got to go because you can't win. And it was only then that the emperor's clothes came off. They came off of that debate. Everyone saw what happened, and they saw the guy who was allegedly in charge, and it was astonishing. But don't forget, it took almost a full month from that debate in Atlanta to the day he dropped out over the summer, when he held on to this facade that he could somehow continue running for re-election. It just, the hubris, the arrogance, it's no limits, and it's going to be something that his party has to answer for in the years ahead.
If I can interject here for
Please.
1 second, I also think he really hurt Democrats, even in my own state. I mean, Governor Josh Shapiro, who is a brilliant political athlete. He's a really, really smart guy. He really came out strongly about that.
He did.
That judge, but also he had sharp criticism yesterday for the Nippon deal. He's been trying to work behind the scenes to make something happen, and so he's not just tarnishing his legacy. He's making it difficult for Democrats to be successful. Let's just stick with Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania alone.
And a prediction from you both before we take another quick break. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris will be a major player in the Democratic primary in 2028? Colin.
Well, she will until they can find somebody else, and right now those people are few and far between. So until and unless they do, she will remain just the default person up for debate.
Salena?
Yeah, she's the Mondale of 2028. and and to Colin's point, unless someone else comes out punching, and with sharper, more a platform that is more has a more broad appeal, she's going to be it. The problem for any Democrat is that primary.
Yeah, indeed. All right, let's take another quick break, and we'll be right back with more Pino on politics. And we're back for the last section of Pino on politics. It could be a short one because I just want to ask you both, after all that you've talked about, in terms of your observations and your analysis, what else are you paying attention to? Is there anything that you think I am missing, or that you're in particular looking to make sure that either you understand or that you can tell your readers about or your clients about, Colin, going forward? Because a lot can happen in the next 4 weeks. Colin, go ahead.
Bad policies have unhelpful real-life outcomes. It's something that people in New York City are about to learn with the congestion pricing that's going into effect now that the elections are over, and they can't hurt candidates up for re-election up there. And a lot of the country right now is getting hammered with a snowstorm. We've got maybe 9-10 inches here in D.C. It's going to get cold this week. That's what happens in the wintertime. However, when it gets hot in the summertime, the left always starts blaming it on climate change, and they use that as a political wedge. But here's the thing, Dana, and I know you talked about this in the show this morning. Right now, on his way out the door, President Biden is punishing those who make energy, who make affordable, reliable energy. He is defying the will of the voters who were drawn to President Trump's message of drill, baby, drill. Just this morning, he canceled 625 million acres of U.S. offshore areas. That's equivalent to nearly a quarter of the entire landmass of the U.S. What happens when you have less energy? You have higher prices and less supply at a time when people need it. And these are the things that I think people are going to be grappling with. And President Trump can do a lot. He's hopefully that shock and awe strategy. I hope we see it in full force when he takes office. But he's not going to be able to unwind and undo all of these bad policies on day one. And people are going to live with it. And it's going to be really unhelpful to people who, especially at a time of the year when it's cold out, it's dark out, and people really need energy to keep the lights on and keep the heat going.
And of course, that affects people right there in your state, too, Salena.
Yeah, absolutely. Two things I'm looking for, and I suspect the first one will happen on day one, and that's lifting the moratorium on liquid natural gas exports. I think that has been the way the energy industry works. Is they're not preparing for next week, they're preparing for 5 years from now. So to have that burden lifted not only helps the industry, but it also helps our farmers. Our farmers depend on the monies that they get from the leases that are on their land. It keeps the farms going. So I think that I'm really looking forward to something like that happening. The thing I'm worried about right now is it's sort of going under the radar, but I just came from the farm show in Pennsylvania, and that's the avian flu.
Yeah.
It had a devastating impact on our economy in 2022, 2021, and parts of 2022. It looks like it is going to hit big again. At least the potential is there. And Pennsylvania is the center of that. It's where we get almost all of our eggs from. And when the avian flu hits, it is devastating to farmers. Yep. It is it affects us, but it also devastates our farming community. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that.
I'm actually really interested in what this administration is going to do for farmers and ranchers. There's the energy piece that Colin talks about, but people forget where their food comes from. And yes, these people need a lot more attention. I feel like this is unbelievable to me. Could anybody here, I'm sure you guys can, but name the agriculture secretary under President Biden?
Well, I could, only because he was the agriculture the agriculture secretary under Obama, and he's from Pittsburgh.
And you have never heard from Mr. Vilsack again. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I interviewed him in 2008. He was like all about rural broadband and bringing muscle back to the rural areas so they had more political clout. And then we never heard from him again. And it's been a major disappointment.
Yeah.
And we really need a robust, strong ag secretary, because that is the most important component of everything else comes out of farming, trucking, energy, our food supply, all of that comes out of ag.
Absolutely. And I don't think that Trump's cabinet will have the same issue. I don't think there's any shrinking violets.
No. No.
All right, Colin Reed, where can people find more of your work?
Well, I just wrote a column for FoxNews.com on the speaker's race on Friday, and that's probably the best place. And one of my 2025 New Year's resolutions is to do more writing. So that's a good place for me to be found.
You are an excellent writer, so we look forward to that. And Salena, you have something big coming up. Tell everyone about that.
I do have something big coming up. You can pre-order my book, Butler. It is my first. It is a first-hand account of what happened on that day, but it also takes the reader through some extraordinary moments throughout the election that a lot of people missed, and a lot of sort of behind-the-curtain experiences that I had with the president that included him chasing me around with hairspray. So I hope people pre-order it. It's on Amazon right now. It's just called Butler. And then you can always read me at selenazito.com.
Well, I think the hair and makeup team is going to chase me around with hairspray in just a moment because I'm going to go get ready to do the 5. Salena and Colin, Happy New Year. And thank you for joining Pino on Politics. Your crowd favorites, and we appreciate it.
Happy New Year, Dave.
Happy New Year.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Listen ad-free